Metabolic syndrome. What do we need to know about it?
Transmitter 42.
Kimberley Huggins continues our health topics on this broadcast with a discussion of metabolic syndrome. Go into the public and it's hard to miss the clues seen in the appearance of American citizens with obvious unhealthy attributes, including the obesity epidemic, poor eating habits, the proliferation of a pill for everything, etc. Kimberley describes the situation and provides guidance to know the clues so you have the opportunity to correct your health before it's too late. Welcome, Kimberley. Welcome back, Kimberley.
Hello.
So today we're going to talk about metabolic syndrome. You're going to tell us what we need to know to have healthier selves.
Okay, so first place to start is if you have or you haven't heard of metabolic syndrome. But it's basically a set of 5 things that you can be looking for in your own health information to tell you how at risk you are. So the idea behind this is these 5 things they're all markers in your life for health conditions that will ultimately lead to cardiovascular disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and or cancer. Okay, so these are all, these are the big ones. These are the ones that destroy our lives, kill us, maim us, all the bad things that we don't want, and that are really an epidemic in our society right now. So when you get your blood work, like we talked about recently, which it's very important that you're getting your blood work done, but it's also important that you understand what it means. So 5 things you need to look at. One would be if you have high blood pressure or not. Okay, that would be the first kind of clue that your health is getting out of control. Okay, and an ideal blood pressure is somewhere around 120/80. Okay, now depending on certain things, that could change. Like if you get nervous when you go to the doctor and you're getting your blood pressure taken, it might be high because you're nervous. But you should think about an average over time. It should be around 120/80. A second factor is not necessarily a blood work factor, but it is something for you to realize that it is a piece of the puzzle. So if you are overweight, okay, and when I say that, I'm talking usually midsection fat. So if your waist circumference is more than half your height, okay, that's a risk factor, okay? The third one would be, I'm trying to say this right, hypertriglyceridemia, which is high triglycerides. Okay, you get that from a lipid panel, your standard blood work that you get if you go to the doctor, if you go to your primary for a physical. I imagine just about all of them run the lipid panel, and you'll have your triglyceride level on that. So your triglycerides should be less than 100, but it's optimal to have them less than 70. Okay, we're going to shoot for 100, but if it's less than 70, that's great. Okay, most of us eating the standard American diet, the SAD diet, have high triglycerides, like probably off the chart triglycerides. Number 4 would be low levels of HDL cholesterol. Now, discussion of cholesterol is for another day. The good cholesterol, bad cholesterol isn't really a thing anymore, but that's probably how you learned it. We've all learned that HDL is the happy cholesterol, so it's the good cholesterol. for our purposes here, we just need to look at the level and know that it needs to be greater than 50. Okay. Now, a little side note that I'm also going to tell you that is a really good marker for your heart health. Okay. If you take your triglyceride to HDL ratio, which means your triglyceride number divided by your HDL number. Okay. And then you get, it's a division, so you get an answer, whatever that is. Okay. Ideally, you want that number to be less than 1, but you certainly want it less than 2. If it's above 2, you're at risk of a heart attack, straight up. And you're at risk of coronary artery disease. Let me put it that way. The last one, we're on the 5th one, would be elevated blood sugar. You get this test when you do your regular blood work. It should be fasting. And you want it to be, well, I should say, if it's 100 or greater, that's a risk factor. Okay? You want it to be less than 100. And ideally, you want your blood work, your sugar, to not be above 120. That's really like the highest you would want it to go. But for the purposes of diagnosing metabolic syndrome, we're going to say if it's 100 or greater, that's a risk factor. Okay. Now, I talked about in the previous episode about some of the tests you should have. And these are kind of all related because I would prefer a fasting insulin test to a blood sugar test because I think that gives you more information. But the blood sugar test is something you can get from a regular doctor in your regular blood work. And that could lead you to maybe see some more tests that you may or may not need to take. But this is a good way to understand just exactly what your risk factors are, because most Americans have at least 2 of these risk factors. And a significant number of us have 3. And if you have 3 or more, you have metabolic syndrome. And if you do not do anything to correct these things that are wrong with you, your future is cardiovascular disease, a stroke, type 2 diabetes, or cancer.
Let's say I have some of these symptoms. What can I do to remedy some of this?
Okay, so let's say you went to the doctor, because not the 5 things I previously talked about, there's probably only one that you might know for sure on your own without going to a doctor. I mean, you might know high blood pressure if you've already been diagnosed or you've gone to the pharmacy and sat down and had your blood pressure taken at the little kiosk thing. But aside from that, most of us know if we're overweight or, have too much of a Buddha belly, whatever you want to call it. The others, yes, you would have to have a test for. But let's say you've been to the doctor and maybe he has or he hasn't talked to you about metabolic syndrome, because I'm not sure doctors are doing a lot of educating, but that's a topic for another
That's
show.
true. I don't think I've ever heard my general practitioner mention it.
So let's say you have 3 of the 5, and I would just say that it's unfortunately very likely that most people would, especially if you are eating the SAD, standard American diet. But I would recommend some of the first things that you would need to do is understand that much of this is in totally 100% in your control. No, I don't want anyone to think that, oh, this is just my bad genes. I can't do anything about it. I'm screwed. That's not true. And most of the time, even if you need to go on medication maybe for a while, or you've been on medication for a while, it is possible to get off medication.
Wow.
And that should be your goal. You should not accept that you need to be on medication for the rest of your life. Okay? because there's a whole nother issue with being on medication for an extended period of time. So one of the things I would just, after telling people that they are in charge of themselves and their body, okay, so you have to understand you have the power. Now you have to use that power. We don't, this is not a, I think I can type of thing where it just happens. You have to do something. But most of us are not walking enough. So walking is inexpensive. You don't have to pay to walk. You just get out and do it. I'm not telling you to go out and join a gym or anything like that. Most of us are not walking enough. We think we are, but we really aren't. And so if you're not walking at all, just start. And it really helps if you walk after you eat. Because if you have a problem with your blood sugar, that will bring your blood sugar down if you go out and walk. Now, if you're not used to walking at all, just start small. Just say, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to walk for 15 minutes after I eat. 15 minutes. Anybody can spare 15 minutes. Maybe you do it at lunch, maybe you do it after dinner, but sometimes that's how you start. And then you just kind of build on that. But I'm not, I know, I even think myself, when I first started walking, I was like, this is boring. I don't want to do it. But it is such a return on investment. It's like the best bang for your buck because it costs you nothing. So start walking. The other piece of advice I would give is please stop eating fake ultra-processed food. Okay? Most of the food in the grocery store now is not even real food. Okay? And I understand that this is a difficult one. I'm not going to say this one's easy. It doesn't cost you money to do it because you are simply not buying things anymore. Okay? So it's actually saving you money, frankly. But fast food that you are consuming for convenience is not helping you. Okay? It's not helping you health-wise. It's hurting you.
Convenience costs you later in life.
Correct. Pay now, pay later. We've all heard that. Okay? So stop eating the processed food. It's time to eat real food. Okay? And it's just an adjustment in a habit. Okay? And anybody can do it. You just need to think differently. You need to plan ahead a little bit. You need to eat real food. And when I say real food, I'm talking about there should be 5 ingredients or less on the package. Okay? And it should all be things you know. Okay? And frankly, I prefer one ingredient. Like beef only has one ingredient. Beef. Eggs only have one ingredient. They're eggs. Okay? So you should be eating real food. And above that, those are going to be 2 biggies right there. Stop drinking soda. I know that's huge for a lot of people, but it's not even just about the sugar. It's more, that is vitally important. But it is about calories, although I would say health is not all about calories. It's not about calories. It's not just about calories in, calories out. Eat less, exercise more, which that's the advice we've been given, forever. That's how you lose weight. Eat less, exercise more. But it should be more about what makes you healthy, okay? And what makes you healthy is eating real nutrient-dense food. Because most of the food in the standard American diet, and I would even say most of the food at the grocery store is not nutrient-dense food. It is filler food, okay? And your body cannot function correctly if you are not receiving the proper nutrients. Now, your body can function. Your body is excellent at treading water, at doing the things it needs to do to keep you alive. But if you do not have the nutrients you need, eventually your body will suffer, okay? And it will suffer because you will get high blood pressure. You will be overweight. You will get high triglycerides. You will get low levels of HDL, and you will get elevated blood sugar. If you continue to eat the garbage that we have in the American food system right now.
Well, the moniker of junk food, I'm sure, applies to this, but this actually goes beyond that, doesn't it? Because a lot of people know that the ho-ho isn't good for you. It's a treat. But this is seeped into our everyday sustenance foods, correct?
True. And what I want people to understand is, like, if you think of, let's take McDonald's, okay, for instance. You ate McDonald's as a kid growing up, okay? And you give your kid McDonald's now. What I want you to understand is the McDonald's that you're buying now and giving to your kids is not the McDonald's food you had when you were a kid. It's different, okay? Just like we all know there's more foods in the grocery store now. Now, I've said this before, I'm 55. So when I was a kid, the average number of items in the grocery store, in any grocery store, was about 300. Now there's over 30,000.
Wow.
And the majority of that food is not nutritious food. It is purposefully made to addict you. That's all the chemicals and all the flavorings and all the, perfect ratio of sugar to fat. So you crave it, but it never fills you up.
Do other countries allow this?
No, not at all. If you had Pop-Tarts, if you went to Europe and bought a box of Pop-Tarts in Europe, because they have Pop-Tarts over there, and you compared the ingredient list, same company, okay, same company that makes Pop-Tarts here makes Pop-Tarts and sends them to Europe. And if you could compare the two ingredient lists, they would be radically different. Ours is full of fakery, chemicals, dyes. If you are looking at strawberry Pop-Tarts, there's not even any strawberries in the American version. Okay. In Europe, they don't allow that. If you say you have strawberry Pop-Tarts, there has to be strawberry in it. They do not allow dyes. They do not allow all the chemicals that we allow over here.
What do they use for dyes instead?
Mostly vegetables, fruits. If they want something to be colored yellow, they use carrots, beets. They use, stuff like that. But back to the point of addiction, I really want people to understand, okay? The food industry has done the same thing with food that the cigarette industry did with cigarettes. We all know, those of us who grew up when literally everyone smoked. Okay, there was a time in here, I know that sounds crazy now, but there was a time in history when everyone smoked all the time. In public, everywhere you went, there was smoking. In high school, there was a smoking area.
The smoker's court.
Right.
Yes.
So everyone smoked. There was literally commercials with doctors saying, this is the cigarette that I choose after dinner for a relaxing evening, or, some bull like that. Okay. So, over time, it came out, if you want to think of it like that, how the cigarette industry had put in all these chemicals and additives to their cigarettes to keep people chronically addicted. And I'm talking about the chain smokers. If you're old enough, you knew a chain smoker. Maybe your parent was a chain smoker. They just smoked all the time, one after another after another. This is why. There were chemical additives. I mean, cigarettes didn't used to be like that. Let's face it. Cigarettes, even way back in the day, I remember my grandfather rolled his own.
From tobacco he purchased independently.
Correct.
And so pipes and cigars, I wonder if they had the same issue, or were they out of that cycle?
Well, think about it. Did you ever know anyone to chain smoke a pipe? No.
Oh, my dad would occasionally touch a cigar, and he would do a pipe as well.
Right.
And then he quit pretty early on in my life.
So, people have smoked, for a long time. I mean, this country had a tobacco industry, and to my point, my grandfather, he had his little box of tobacco, and he had a little thing of papers, and he would literally roll his cigarette and smoke it. So, fast forward, cigarettes changed, and they made them purposefully super addictive. Okay. Well, the same thing has happened in the food industry. Okay. And this is really difficult because there's a lot of things caught up in our food industry. A lot of us we're taught to eat to solve problems. Maybe not purposefully, but it's certainly a subliminal. We're taught to eat. It'll make us feel better if you eat. You'll be happy if you eat. You're feeling sad. Get your pint of Ben and Jerry's and eat the whole thing. That's okay. And we're taught to eat all the time. Every 2 hours basically. Now they want it like 3 meals and 3 snacks a day. That's eating every 2 hours. Okay.
How old is that advice? Do you know?
I don't know how old, but I mean, it came around at some point in our lifetime, because if we think back, like I remember my great grandmother and then my grandparents, there was no eating 6 meals a day.
No.
Food was put on the table 3 times a day, and that was it.
Same for us. A good breakfast, a packed lunch for school, and then usually a home-cooked meal at night.
Right. Now, maybe as a kid, if you came home, you had a little snack after school. Okay? But there was no this constant, now it's like you're bored. I mean, we do this with our kids, okay, which is not a really good plan. They're looking for something to do. We give them food. We give them a snack. We have them occupy themselves with food. My point is, all this eating, there is a consequence, because humans are not meant to eat as much as we are eating now. Our bodies are not physically capable to handle the overabundance of carbohydrates, I would say, which is sugar, in our diet. Okay. And I just want to point out here real quickly too, because this is important. I think everybody knows junk food is bad for you. We all know that. We all know, even if we're doing it, we know we shouldn't be eating 4 donuts. We know we shouldn't be eating
6 Ojos.
Skittles all the time. We know we shouldn't be, eating ice cream every day. Although I know there's people out there that do it, but I'm just saying, we know that, okay? But what I don't think a lot of people realize is, one, they don't understand how much they really are eating. They don't understand that it's nutrient deficient, and they don't understand that if you are metabolically broken, like we have been talking about, you have high blood pressure, and you are overweight, you have high triglycerides, if you have elevated blood sugar, if you have type 2 diabetes, okay, let's take it from the other end. If you have cardiovascular disease, if you've had a stroke, if you have type 2 diabetes, or you have cancer, you are metabolically broken. Now, that doesn't mean, period, end of story, can't do anything about it. but you're already there. Okay? So you have to approach your life differently. If you want to be around, because you're already metabolically broken. So to a metabolically broken person, a potato, an order of French fries, a bowl of rice is the same to your body as a piece of cake.
Wow.
Okay, and I know that just saying that is shocking to a lot of people, okay? Now, I'm not telling you necessarily to never have rice, never have potatoes, never have, okay, but I am telling you it depends where you are health-wise, okay? Because if you are a triathlete, okay, and you're young, you're 100% healthy, you are eating nutritious food, you really do, okay? And you eat a potato, maybe it's not going to jack your blood sugar. But if you're if you already have diabetes and you eat rice, your sugar's through the roof. Okay? And I understand people think that complex carbs, which are the things I'm talking about, rice, potatoes, pasta, bread, okay?
Wheat
Products,
barley,
okay?
all grains.
They want people, and because you've been taught, I get it. You've been taught that these things are healthy. Okay, now
probably the fiber excuse.
Well, actually, it goes back to the food pyramid, which that's a whole nother topic too. But to your body, when you eat rice, your body takes the complex carb, which all it is two sugar molecules attached. The first thing your body does is cleaves it, so there's just two sugar molecules. So there is no difference to your body between the sugar that comes from rice or the sugar that comes from cake.
Or pop. Or Starbucks drinks that aren't just straight coffee, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of people seem to be... They have a whole category of foods or more than one that they don't think counts.
Correct. And it's not even about the calories, which is what we've been taught. So if you're drinking soda pop and it's Coke Zero, you think you're doing okay. Calorie-wise, maybe you are. But it's going to, even though it's zero sugar, it's not zero impact.
Okay. Well, I think we've run out of time for this episode. I would say that you have given us a stark warning about how to beware of the standard American diet. Look to the other countries of the world that seem to be clued in on how to take care of their people. We don't seem to be doing that here. Thank you, Kimberly. Archives of this broadcast are available on our website at t42.am. If you have a comment about this or past episodes, or if you have an idea for a future topic you would like to discuss, please send an email to radioshow@t42.am or mail a note to Transmitter 42 LLC, P.O. Box 100, Remington, Virginia 22734. Thanks for listening. Please join Transmitter 42 again next time on WBCQ Radio and T42.am.
Transmitter 42.